Good morning.
Good morning.
Our scripture this morning is found in the book of Matthew, chapter 14, verses 28 through 33. It's Matthew chapter 14, verses 28 through 33. And I'll be reading from the New King James Version. And Peter answered him and said, Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water. So he said, Come. And when Peter had come down out of the boat, he walked on the water to go to Jesus. But when he saw that the wind was boisterous, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried out, saying, Lord, save me. And immediately Jesus stretched out his hand and caught him and said to him, O ye of little faith, why did you doubt? And when they got into the boat, the wind ceased. Then those who were in the boat came and worshipped him, saying, Truly you are the Son of God. The word of God for the people of God.
Praise God.
Before I get into the word, I would just again like to thank you all for your gracious hospitality and having me here. I always love when I come here because there's so much love here and I get to feel it, and that makes me feel awesome. And so I just thank you all for sharing your love with me and allowing me to stand before you. And thanks to Brooks for inviting me to come out. So, the task at hand. Have you ever been afraid to do something? It could be anything. Swimming, gymnastics, driving, going to school, walking across the street, leaving your home, anything. It can be whatever you want it to be. You know that thing that you are afraid of or a little timid about doing. And how hard is it to do something new when you don't know the unknowns? You don't know when the water raises in the pool, so you go from the shallow end to the deep end. You don't know if you will understand how to do a backward flip from a forward flip. You don't know if you'll even understand any of the schoolwork. There are so many unknowns that keep us in our seats from going forward and doing the things that we know we are supposed to do. Our mind has an interesting way of working against us. It can easily trick us into believing that we are not equipped to handle the task that has been given to us. Sometimes we let our fears control us to the point of never trying anything new. We are just fine where we are, and anything more is simply too much. We have to remember that God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of love and of power and of a sound mind. We have to remember that we can do all things through Christ who strengthens us. We read our Bible, we hear these principles, we must act on them. How much easier then is it to perform when we know we cannot fail? When we know that even if we are walking a tightrope, there is a net there waiting, ready to catch us should we fall. It is easy to become overconfident when we are comfortable with the potential unknowns. But it's during the scariest moments that we find out what we are really made of and who or what we trust. We are often comfortable with situations because we know that we can predict the outcome. I know that if I walk a few feet in front of me that I'm not going to trip because I can see the ground, I can see where I'm going, I can see that there are no stumbling blocks in my way. But what if you were to be blind and had to walk forward? If we are always safe and secure, then why do we need police officers, firemen and firewomen, and doctors, or even lifeguards? Today, I want to talk to you from the topic, lifeguard. So, what exactly is a lifeguard and why do we have them? What is their point? A lifeguard is someone who has been given charge to watch over the lives of those in a particular body of water. We commonly find lifeguards by the pool, either in our apartment setting or at a community center, and even at the amusement park where there are water parks. We find signs that say either no swimming when lifeguard is not present or swim at your own risk when lifeguard is not present. The lifeguard has a very specific job. They have a very important task to be ever ready to save a life if it falls into danger. The lifeguard is one who guards our life. Most lifeguards sit high on ladders with buoys in order to have a better view of what is going on. They sit and they watch and they're ready. At youth camps on the first day they have swim tests. This lets the lifeguard know who to keep a special eye on and how deep into the water they can go. They pass out color-coded bracelets that say, "You are not swimming," "You can swim but stay in the shallow end," or "You are free to swim clear across the body of water," whether it's a lake, a river, the ocean, or simply a pool with concrete parameters. So having this information not only frees up the swimmer to have a good time, but it allows the lifeguard to have a general focus. Just because the lifeguard may be focusing in on swimmers in the shallow end does not mean, though, that he or she is not watching those in every other area. We need lifeguards. We need people who are looking out for our well-being in the midst of our fun and activities. When we know there is a lifeguard on duty, we are a little more carefree about what we do. Our friends who cannot swim actually get into the water and at least attempt to float, or at least not drown, right? There's a greater chance that one will take a risk knowing that there is someone there to rescue them in their time of trouble, should it arise. Now, just because we have a lifeguard doesn't give us full reign to be foolish. A present lifeguard does not mean we can intentionally do unsafe things. It does not mean that we can be careless with our own life or those around us. It does not mean that we should go up to the highest dive and jump off and hope that we don't hit the bottom of the pool. I want us to have an understanding on what a lifeguard does. If we are going to understand this message and what Peter experienced, we must understand the role of a lifeguard. So then on top of the lifeguard, there is this thing called a coach. The coach is one who helps you to understand the game or activity you are attempting. The coach gives instructions and skills to be successful in a particular area. We find coaches in sports, games, and life. Yes, even in life, we have coaches who help us to be successful in life and to live it to the best of our ability. The coach may push us out of our comfort zone, ask us the hard questions. The coach may also hold our hand until the coach says, "I've taken you as far as I can take you. You must finish the rest on your own." Jesus is much the same in that sometimes in our lives, Jesus is focused in on us, watching our every move, prepared if needed to respond in an instant. Then there are those moments when we step out onto shaky faith, trying to swim in the deep end, and Christ, our lifeguard, has to come and rescue us. There are moments when our lifeguard can turn his head and say, "Oh, I know that you can swim in this. I see your bracelet that says you can swim over here and be fine. But I see that I have some who can't swim but are trying, and I need to give them closer attention." It's not that God ever turns his back on us or that he's never watching us, but sometimes we are able to help ourselves. Sometimes our lifeguard needs assistance, knowing that he has given us the skills we need to be successful. Today, our text, we find the disciples in a shaky situation. It is late and they are out in their boat, which is the equivalent of a rowboat. They have been using oars to get across the river. They are tired and they are now afraid. The wind was raging and had caused them to drift to the opposite direction they had intended for. When they encounter this figure out on the water, they do not recognize him to be Jesus. They believe it is a ghost for what person can walk on water. What would you do if you were in a boat and you saw someone walking on the water? Would you too, like the disciples, think, is that a ghost? What is that thing? Is it a person? We have to ask ourselves to think like the disciples, to sometimes understand just what they were thinking. They thought it was a ghost. This story of Jesus walking on the water is found in 3 of the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and John. In all 3 of these passages, the same thing happens. Jesus sends them on their way to catch up with them later. There is a storm out to sea. Jesus walks on water. Peter gets out of the boat. Peter gets distracted and begins to sing and asks Jesus to save him. And Jesus saves them. They get back in the boat. Jesus asks them about their faith. They worship Jesus and claim him to be the Son of God. In all 3 of the Gospels, that is the story that takes place. Now, prior to this reading that I shared with you today, the disciples had just seen Jesus work the miracle of feeding the 5,000. There were all these people, this multitude of people that was listening to Jesus. They were there listening to his every word, and they had been there so long, they were hungry. It was late. And the disciples said, well, shouldn't we send them home? Because we don't have any food, and we really don't have enough money to go to the market to try to feed all these people. And Jesus said, bring me what you have, which was 5 loaves and 2 fish. And they saw Jesus take the loaf and the fish and bless it and break it, and had more than enough. They had seen a miracle, so why would this be any different to think that Jesus could walk on this water? So what's so important about this? Jesus reveals himself to his disciples in a deeper manner. Although they had seen the miracle and Jesus had calmed the storm before, it is in this moment that they truly see Jesus in his glory and understand him to be the Son of God. In Matthew 8 and Mark 4, Jesus was in the boat with them when the storm was raging and was calling into the boat. They thought they were going to drown, but Jesus simply says, peace, be still, and the wind stopped. And they were amazed at this Jesus. Here, he had saved their lives once before, and they found themselves out again in stormy weather. It was once he got out there, this time, Peter was more aware, and he asked to go out on the water. He was attempting to say, okay, I'm going to try you at your work. Has anybody ever tried Jesus? Okay, Jesus, you said I could do this, so I'm going to try it. If it's really you telling me to do this, I'm going to go out there. And so he did, and somewhere he had enough faith to start the journey. It was once he got out there that the surrounding noises began to distract him. And he took his focus off his coaching, Lifeguard. You see, Peter said, Jesus, if it's you, tell me to come. And Jesus said, come. Jesus was standing there that whole time saying, come on. Come on. You know, when a toddler is first starting to walk, and you're like, come on, walk to auntie, walk to mommy, walk to daddy. And you want to hold their little hands, and it's like, okay, just one more step. Jesus was coaching Peter to come to him. When we are walking with and toward Jesus, we don't have to fear. We don't have to worry about what's going on to our left or our right or anything if we just stay centered and focus on Jesus. How was it that Peter was able to even get out of the boat? That's where we start. Just simply getting out of the boat. We have to trust our lifeguard. We have to trust that Jesus is there waiting and watching to help us if we start on a journey and trouble arises. We may never see Jesus if we play it safe and never take the necessary risk to reach the fullness of the greatness placed inside of us. So how do we know then and when to use the lifeguard? Is there ever time to call out to the lifeguard? In life, we will have encounters like the disciples. Some days we will be the ones that stay in the boat. But one day we will be bold like Peter and ask Jesus to let us come and walk on the water. It is in the boldness of wanting to walk on the water that our lifeguard shows up. It is in the wanting to walk on the water that our lifeguard shows up. We have to want it. When we leave today, I want us to have a bold, more focused faith. And we have a lifeguard that allows us to be bold. You see, in this life, we have to be willing to take risks. We have to be bold, willing to take a stand and be different. We have been given a great task to do greater works than Jesus. We have been told that the harvest for souls is plentiful, but the laborers are few. We have been told that Jesus will never leave us nor forsake us, and therefore we can say with confidence that the Lord is my help. I will not fear. What can man do to me? We have to be bold enough to start the journey. There is no need for a lifeguard if we won't get in the water. If we all went to the ocean today and we just stayed on the shore, there would be no need for a lifeguard, for no one would be attempting to be different, to go into the water, to take it a little deeper, to trust a little more, to be bold and follow the Lord. Jesus is waiting for us to get out of our comfort zones and do something bold and brave, something that only God can get us through. The works that we have in our head need to be written down and then birthed. We must be bold and brave. Trust your lifeguard. We must be in prayer and conversation with God, acknowledging His presence in our regular routine so that we build trust and are able to see Him for who He is. The disciples weren't looking for Jesus, and maybe they were just not in the presence of His full glory. We want to cap the ways in which Jesus can come to us, and therefore He sneaks up on us and causes us to be afraid because we weren't expecting Him in this manner. He is our lifeguard, and He is always watching. We then should always be watching, for He is always present. Our lifeguard encourages us to keep focused. Since the lifeguard's sole responsibility at the pool or lake or ocean is to watch for swimmers, it would be good for the swimmers to know where the lifeguard is. If you're on the big ocean, if anyone's ever been to the ocean and you decide that you're going to be down here but the lifeguard is in the middle, you can't really tell where the lifeguard is. And though the lifeguard sits high, the lifeguard can't always tell where you are. Sometimes we hide from our lifeguard. We want to lose focus so that we don't have to be accountable. But if the lifeguard happens to not be on the stand, what would you do? Or where else would you go if you needed help? The disciples were in trouble. They were swaying and drifting. They had seen this before, but where were they looking for help? They were just rowing, hoping the winds would subside and they would make it to the shore. But they had a lifeguard who was watching and waiting. When Jesus came to them and they realized it was Him, Peter said, "If you bid me to come, And Jesus said, come. Peter did great as long as he focused on Jesus. Surely if he was not focused on Jesus, as soon as he stepped in the water, he would have drowned. For what person can truly walk on water? What person can walk on water? As long as he was making eye contact with Jesus, he could do it. But as soon as the whispering winds began to get louder, he looked away from Jesus. He lost his focus and began to sink. How many of us has this happened to? We're brave and bold and start making changes in our lives. We hear sermons like this that encourage us to do something, and we're ready to go, and then the naysayers begin. Doubt sets in. People we thought would help us begin to walk away. We have to get a second job just to make ends meet. The wind is howling, and instead of keeping your focus on Jesus and the promises he has for you, you begin looking around trying to figure out how to keep from drowning. We have to keep our focus on the lifeguard. I don't know if any of you have ever drowned or almost drowned or tried to help someone who was drowning, but you know it can get complicated. Their arms are flailing around and they're going up and down, and you could potentially get hurt. You are not technically a lifeguard, but a willing person who is there to help in a time of trouble. When you are talking or helping someone who is drowning, you have to talk calmly to them. You have to reassure them that everything is going to be okay and that you are there to help them. You have to get them to focus on you and not the fact that they are going under the water, so that you can help them get safely out of the water. When we keep focused on Jesus, he aligns everything else. As Peter was drowning, he called out, "Lord, save me." He was then focusing back on Jesus. Jesus reached out and saved him and placed him safely in the boat, and the storm ceased. It was in this moment that they realized who Jesus was, and they worshiped Jesus. Jesus comes to us in our storms to reveal himself to us. In what new ways do you see Jesus in your storms? Have you found him to be a lifeguard? Have you found him to be someone who is true to his word? We have to be bold and keep our focus. That is what helps us to grow our faith. Our lifeguard reminds us to have faith. We have to keep the faith. And we hear that all the time. Keep the faith. But it's hard to keep the faith when it seems like the world around us is falling apart. We hear keep the faith in the midst of our storms, and yet it feels like the water is getting higher and higher and the wind is blowing harder and stronger. In the midst of the trial and tribulation, we are reminded to be of good cheer, for God has already conquered the world. But how do we do it in the midst of a storm? How do we really keep the faith? In 1992, I was 8 years old. I was on a family outing with my aunt and my brothers, and we were at a theme park, and I was on a little inner tube, and the water came, the waves were going, and it was okay. I was a little nervous. And one good wave came, and I went under the water, and I was terrified. Now, the water wasn't all that high, and it wasn't, deep at all. It was real shallow, like shallow. But in that moment, I was afraid. In that moment, I didn't know if the water was high or low or what. I just knew I was under the water, and I didn't know how to get out. And it was in that moment when terror filled my world that my aunt reached her hand down and pulled me up. She was there watching me, knowing that I couldn't swim, but we were on a safe inner tube, and she reached down and she got me. And in that moment, my aunt was my lifeguard. In that moment, I trusted her just a little bit more than I had before. My faith that she would not let anything bad happen to me grew just a little bit more. I had seen her in action, working to save me. Jesus wants to be able to reach down and grab us. We've seen him do work. We've seen his many miracles in the lives of our own and our friends, our family members. Our faith grows just a little bit more each time we see him go. It is in our greatest storms that we ought to have more faith. Our faith that we claim to have ought to be activated. We have faith for small things. Let us have faith for big things. Scary storms that we face. It doesn't matter if your faith is the size of a mustard seed or a peach pit. We have to have faith in Jesus. We have seen him do miraculous things. He is faithful. He is there. He is our lifeguard. I'll close with this. I was listening to K-Love Radio maybe almost 2 weeks ago, and Matthew West was sharing a story. He and his daughter were in the pool, and she says, "Daddy, let's play lifeguard." And so, being a fun-loving dad, he said, "Sure." And of course, she was the lifeguard, and he was the one who pretended to drown. Now, his daughter was a new swimmer, and so they were in the shallow end of the pool, and he would pretend to drown, and she would go out and save him. And he would pretend to drown, and she would go out and save him. And this went on for a period of time. Now, he began to get a little tired after a while. You know how parents do. It's like, look, is this over yet? So and because he was tired, he wasn't fully focused, and he had actually drifted into the deeper end of the pool. He was doing his drowning bit and realizes that there's no lifeguard there to save him. He begins to call out, "Lifeguard, lifeguard, where's my lifeguard?" And the lifeguard is standing on the side of the pool looking at him like, I can't save you from that. I can't get in there. If I get in there, we're really going to drown. Then I'll need you to be the lifeguard, Daddy. And so he realizes that she's there, and she says, "Daddy, you've gone too far, but I'll tell you how to get back so then I can come out and save you." And so Matthew West goes on to say that in that moment he recognizes that he was really glad he didn't have to rely on his daughter to be his lifeguard. That he didn't have to rely on people to be the lifeguard, but God was saying that he is always there to help in the time of trouble. That God is always our lifeguard. So even when that thing we trust to save us fails us, because it can't go that far, God is always there, always present with us. His faith was in God and not his daughter. So many times we put our faith in the wrong nouns, the wrong people, the wrong places, the wrong things. Jesus is asking us to put our faith in him and trust that he is our lifeguard, watching over our situations. And when we need him, he will be there. Trust your lifeguard.
Amen.